The story begins during a violent storm as Tom Curry, a lighthouse keeper, spots a mysterious body washed ashore. It's a woman, barely alive, battered and clutching a strange trident. He carries her inside to save her, but when she wakes up, she springs into action, pinning him with her weapon. Tom freezes.
You weren't breathing.
Assuring her he means no harm and just pulled her from the sea. Weak from her injuries, she collapses again. Tom nurses her back to health. When she wakes once more, she introduces herself. Atlanta, Queen of Atlantis, an underwater kingdom beyond imagination. She eats one of Tom's pet fish, much to his horror, and he awkwardly offers her tea and a proper meal. The bond between them grows, and in time they fall in love. Soon, their love brings a child into the world, Arthur. But their happiness is short-lived. Atlanta fled an arranged marriage to King Orm, and the king's soldiers won't stop hunting her. One night, the lighthouse is under siege. Tom hides Arthur while Atlanta fearlessly battles the attackers, dispatching them with ruthless precision.
You are ordered to return to Atlantis.
Before leaving, she tells Tom there's no other way to protect their son. Tearfully, she promises to return at sunrise one day. Tom begs her to stay, but she disappears into the storm, leaving him to raise Arthur alone. Years later,
check it out. Arthur is talking to the fish.
Arthur's extraordinary abilities begin to surface. During a school trip to an aquarium, bullies corner him, mocking and shoving him. Suddenly, a massive shark slams against the glass, terrifying everyone. Arthur stands calmly as the shark continues to thrash, until, shockingly, he silences it with a stare. The other sea creatures gather near him in perfect harmony. The room watches in stunned silence as Arthur realizes he can communicate with the ocean. Soon after, Atlanta's loyal advisor, Vulko, appears to train Arthur in secret. Under Vulko's guidance, Arthur learns to fight and control his powers, growing into a force to be reckoned with. Years later, a ruthless pirate named Manta and his father, Jesse, hijack a military submarine in the middle of the ocean. As Manta starts his demands, chaos erupts. The submarine is shaking. The crew gasps, claiming something is pushing it to the surface. Manta knows exactly what it is. Enter Aquaman. Arthur storms the submarine like a one-man army, dismantling Manta's crew with brutal efficiency. Manta attacks, furious that his perfect mission is crumbling, but Arthur handles him easily. Just as Arthur turns to leave, Jesse fires a specialized bullet, one that strikes Arthur and sends him crashing to the floor. Father and son celebrate until Arthur rises, calm, unshaken, staring them down with an almost amused smirk.
Let's not make it a habit.
The look on Manta's face says it all. He's not dealing with an ordinary man. Aquaman is something else entirely. Arthur injures Jesse and, without hesitation, turns his back on the pirates, ready to leave them inside the sinking submarine. Jesse, however, fires one last shot, but Arthur effortlessly dodges it. The bullet strikes the wall, causing water to pour in violently, and a massive gas tank crashes down, trapping Jesse's leg underneath. Panicking, Manta rushes to help his father, desperately trying to lift the heavy tank, but it doesn't budge. With growing fear, he turns to Arthur, pleading with him to save Jesse. He knows Arthur has the strength to lift it. One act of mercy could save his father's life. But Arthur, still seething, coldly refuses.
He deserves this.
Arthur mutters, his voice filled with contempt as he glares at the man responsible for countless deaths. Manta watches in disbelief as Arthur walks away, the water rising higher with each passing second. Jesse, realizing the inevitable, orders Manta to leave.
You have to stay alive,
he urges, his voice shaking, so you can kill him one day. Manta refuses to abandon his father, but Jesse, with grim resolve, sets off a grenade to stop his son from staying behind. Forced to leave, Manta swims away, devastated as he watches the submarine explode behind him, taking his father with it. Shortly after, Arthur reunites with Tom on the shore. Tom, ever the supportive father, greets him with warmth and offers to buy him breakfast. At a bar, as they settle in, Tom watches the news about Aquaman saving the submarine crew. He beams with pride, turning to Arthur and saying,
"You're doing something good, son."
Arthur shrugs it off, refusing to take credit, but Tom won't let it go. He reminds Arthur that everything Vulko taught him was for a reason, and that Atlanta always believed Arthur was destined to unite two worlds. Arthur, his bitterness showing, shuts the conversation down.
I don't owe Atlantis anything.
He snaps.
They killed her for loving you and for having me.
Tom sighs and places a hand on his son's shoulder, telling him softly that it's not his fault. Before they can continue, a group of rowdy men at the bar recognize Arthur as Aquaman, instead of starting a fight.
What do you want?
I'll tell you what I want.
Can we get a picture with you? Whatever.
They surprise him by asking for selfies, excitedly crowding around him like fans at a concert. Arthur, caught off guard, reluctantly plays along. Meanwhile, deep in Atlantis, Orm gathers his advisors and meets with King Nereus of Zebel to discuss a far darker matter. Orm warns Nereus about the surface dwellers' growing threat, claiming their submarines have come dangerously close to Atlantis' borders.
They won't stop.
Orm declares, his tone chilling.
We strike first or we'll be next.
Nereus, unimpressed, dismisses Orm's claims.
Humans will destroy themselves,
He argues,
and we don't need to start a war to help them.
but Orm won't relent. He insists that uniting the Atlantean kingdoms is the only way to guarantee their safety and proposes an alliance with Zebel to gain momentum. Nereus, sensing something deeper, asks if Orm's motives are about power, specifically the title of Ocean Master, which would give him control over the mightiest army in history. Orm scoffs, feigning indifference, but Nereus presses further. He brings up the rumors of a half-breed who might challenge Orm's claim to the throne. At this, Orm's calm shatters. His voice hardens as he vehemently denies the possibility.
Arthur is nothing.
Orm sneers, his bitterness clear. He blames Arthur for their mother's death. And though he masks it as a defense of Atlantis, his hatred runs far deeper. As Orm dismisses the idea of a half-breed challenging his throne, the meeting is violently interrupted. A submarine launches an attack, firing torpedoes that blast through the underwater chamber. The explosion sends shockwaves rippling through the water, killing several of Orm's and Nereus's men. Enraged, Orm charges at the submarine like a missile, tearing through its hull and leaving it in pieces. As the dust settles, Orm turns to Nereus, seizing the opportunity. The attack, he argues, is proof that the surface dwellers are a threat. Reluctantly, King Nereus agrees to ally with him. Meanwhile, back at the bar, Tom has clearly had one too many drinks. Arthur rolls his eyes and hauls his father into the truck to take him home. Just as Arthur is about to leave, Mera appears out of nowhere, standing tall and regal. Her presence is impossible to ignore. She tells Arthur that he needs to come with her to Atlantis urgently. Arthur scoffs, making it clear he has no interest in helping the people who, as far as he's concerned, killed his mother. Mera doesn't back down. She warns him that Orm is on the brink of launching a war against the surface world, a war they cannot afford to lose. Arthur remains defiant, asking how he's supposed to stop it. Mera reveals that the only way to stop Orm is for Arthur to claim the throne, but he laughs off the idea.
Me? A king? Nobody in Atlantis would follow me.
He says, his skepticism clear. Mera doesn't give up, explaining that Arthur could prove himself by finding the lost trident of King Atlan, a legendary artifact that symbolizes true leadership. Vulko, Mera adds, has recently found clues to its location, but time is running out. Arthur, however, dismisses the notion and drives off, leaving Mera behind. Back in Atlantis, Orm meets with Manta, the pirate who blames Arthur for his father's death. The attack on the meeting chamber, it turns out, was staged. Orm paid Manta to pilot the submarine and make it look like a surface assault. Manta demands a chance to kill Aquaman in return, but Orm, having completed the deal, simply walks away. While Arthur drives his father home, something feels off. A hush falls over the coast as birds flee in panic. Arthur's instincts kick in just as he spots a colossal tsunami rising from the horizon. It crashes down on the shoreline in an unstoppable wave of destruction. Arthur slams on the gas, trying to outrun it, but the truck is engulfed in the flood. At the last moment, Mera returns, using her hydrokinetic powers to create an air pocket and save Arthur. With Tom unconscious and trapped inside the truck, Arthur struggles to revive him. Mera steps in to help, and together, they manage to save his father's life. As Arthur looks at the devastation left behind, Mera tells him this is just the beginning, Orm's warning to the surface world. Realizing the stakes, Arthur agrees to go with Mera to Atlantis. It's a reluctant acceptance, fueled more by a sense of responsibility than any desire for the throne. When they arrive, Mera takes him to Vulko, who has been waiting for Arthur's return for years. Vulko greets him warmly, clearly pleased to see the son of Atlanta finally in his rightful place. Arthur doesn't waste time. He demands answers about the attack, doubting the surface world's involvement. Vulko confirms that the submarine's ambush was real, but insists there's more to Orm's plan. If Orm gains the support of 2 more kingdoms, he will claim the title of Ocean Master and wield the full might of Atlantis against the surface. The only way to stop him, Vulko says, is for Arthur to take the throne. Arthur balks at the idea, saying he doesn't want to be king. But Vulko reminds him that with Orm's growing power, there is no other choice. If Arthur doesn't act, war is inevitable. To To prove himself worthy of the throne, Arthur must find the lost trident of Atlan, a weapon of unimaginable power that will unite the kingdoms under a true ruler. Arthur remains unconvinced, but deep down, he knows Vulko is right. This isn't just about Atlantis anymore. It's about stopping a war that could destroy both worlds. Arthur shrugs, saying he already has his mother's trident, but Vulko quickly shuts him down. This isn't that trident. This one is different. It's the trident forged ages ago by the greatest weapon masters for the first king of Atlantis, King Atlan. When Arthur brushes it off as just another story, Vulko gets serious. Atlantis wasn't always an underwater myth. Once, it was the most advanced civilization on the surface, thriving and unstoppable, until their greed and ambition pushed them too far. They created a weapon so powerful that it sank the entire kingdom straight to the ocean floor. The survivors adapted, learning to breathe underwater, but unity was lost. Atlantis fractured into separate kingdoms, each claiming its own piece of the sea. Ashamed of what happened, King Atlan vanished, taking the trident with him. The weapon disappeared into legend, said to hold the power to unite all kingdoms under one ruler, or destroy anyone unworthy who dared wield it. Vulko shows Arthur a rusted recorder, explaining that it holds King Atlan's last message and the trident's location. Simple, right? Not so much. The thing is ancient, and the only way to activate it is with a device hidden in the Deserter Kingdom, a place where no one goes willingly. Before Arthur can argue or take the recorder, Orm's men burst in, blowing the place sky high. Explosions shake the ground as Arthur fights back, holding his own against Orm's elite soldiers. Mera and Vulko are forced to retreat, leaving Arthur surrounded. Outnumbered and overpowered, he's finally captured. Chained to the ground in the heart of Atlantis, Arthur comes face to face with Orm, his half-brother. Orm's smug, but there's a flicker of conflict in his eyes. Seeing Arthur here stirs something he's not willing to admit. Maybe resentment, maybe doubt. Arthur, furious and unbowed, lunges at him, chains straining, but it's useless. Orm barely flinches as he asks if Arthur has come to challenge him for the throne. Arthur doesn't hesitate. He's here to end Orm's war. Orm, smug as ever, accepts the challenge, setting the terms: if Arthur wins, he gets the throne. If he loses, he dies. Simple. Mera and Vulko beg Orm to reconsider, pointing out that Arthur is unprepared for underwater combat. Orm couldn't care less. He wants a show, and the citizens of Atlantis will get one. In a cell later, Vulko visits Arthur, frustrated that he let Orm bait him into this fight. Arthur, stubborn as ever, insists he can handle it. Vulko warns him that fighting underwater isn't like anything he's done before, but Arthur shrugs it off. As he sits alone, Arthur's mind flashes back to his youth, training hard under Vulko's watchful eye. He remembers asking Vulko when he'd finally meet his mother, only to be hit with a truth he wasn't ready for. Atlanta had been sent to the Kingdom of the Trench for execution. The weight of that memory lingers, Arthur blaming himself for what happened. And now, as he prepares for the fight of his life, it's clear. This battle isn't just about the throne, it's about redemption. Back in Atlantis, Orm presents Mera with a ceremonial bracelet, calmly outlining his plan to crush Arthur. Mera challenges him, asking if their mother would want them at war. Orm scoffs, dismissing Atlanta as weak and warning Mera not to follow her path. Vulko arrives, dragging Arthur in chains. Orm smugly orders Vulko to escort his betrothed Mera to the royal box. Arthur freezes for a second, caught off guard by the news, but lets it slide. Facing his half-brother, Arthur admits he once hoped they'd stand together, only to be met with Orm's cold offer: leave quietly or watch the surface dwellers burn. Arthur refuses. The crowd erupts as the brothers head to the arena. In the royal box, Mera confronts her father, King Nereus, appalled that he's backing Orm. Nereus justifies his stance, claiming the surface world struck first and Atlantis must respond. The fight begins with Orm dominating from the start, his underwater prowess overwhelming Arthur. Arthur rallies briefly, landing a few solid hits, but Orm regains control, pummeling him into submission. Just as Orm prepares the finishing blow, a sudden air pocket forms around him. Mera has intervened. She swoops in with her ship, shouting for Arthur to get on. The two make a daring escape with Orm and his forces hot on their trail. Orm's men unleash a relentless pursuit, ultimately blowing up Mera's ship. But by then, Arthur and Mera have hidden inside the mouth of a massive sea creature, one Arthur calmly persuaded to help. Assuming them dead, Orm calls off the hunt. Mera tells Arthur their next stop, the Sahara Desert, where they can unlock Atlan's last message in the Deserter Kingdom. On the plane ride, Mera wrestles with guilt over turning her back on Atlantis, even if it means saving it. Arthur tries to lighten the mood, joking that at least she's off the hook for marrying Orm. Mera smirks but admits abandoning her people weighs on her. Meanwhile, Orm's soldiers pick up Mera's tracker in the desert, exposing her location. Orm prepares to send a team after them, but Nereus intervenes, warning Orm not to harm his daughter. Orm calls her betrayal treason but agrees to bring her back alive, for now. On the shoreline, Orm strikes a deal with Manta, arming him with a state-of-the-art superweapon and a team of elite soldiers. Orm offers a hefty reward for Arthur's head, but Manta doesn't care about the money. His revenge on Arthur is all the motivation he needs. In the blazing desert, Mera struggles to locate the entrance to the Deserter Kingdom while Arthur, sweating buckets, complains about trekking through what feels like an endless wasteland. Mera fires back, pointing out that Arthur should feel at home since they're on land. Arthur, ever the smart mouth, quips that Earth has far better places than a giant sandbox. He tells her not to judge the surface world based on one bad view, but Mera snaps that Arthur hated Atlantis long before he tried to understand it. Tension hangs between them, but they press on. Eventually, they stumble upon the entrance, an ancient, half-buried temple lost to time. Inside, the Deserter Kingdom feels like a forgotten monument, filled with crumbling ruins and eerie silence. Mera and Arthur uncover a massive chamber that confirms Atlan's trident isn't just a myth, it's real. At the center, they find the ancient recording device needed to play Atlan's message. Arthur activates the capsule, and a hologram of King Atlan appears. The image of the once mighty ruler speaks of the trident's unmatched power, declaring that only the true heir can wield it to unite Atlantis and the surface world. But there's a catch. The trident lies hidden beyond the edge of the world, in the fabled Hidden Sea. To find it, they must follow a path revealed by a bottle, one that only the hands of a true king can unlock. Before they can overthink it, a hidden mechanism clicks, and a bottle rises from the temple floor. Mera smashes the recorder to dust, ensuring no one else can follow their trail, and together, they retrieve the map hidden inside the bottle. The path leads them to Italy. Italy feels like a vacation after the desert trek. Mera, for the first time, allows herself to marvel at the surface world, the vibrant streets, the food, and the culture. Arthur watches her explore, teasing that she's finally getting it. The surface isn't so bad, but the fun doesn't last. Near an ancient statue, they realize the bottle they found is key to revealing their next destination. Arthur places it in the statue's hand, and just like that, the map comes to life, pinpointing their path in the middle of the ocean. Their moment is cut short when Manta storms in with Orm's soldiers. He attacks Arthur relentlessly, his supercharged suit and weapons giving him a terrifying edge. Manta's moves are brutal and precise, leaving Arthur scrambling to keep up. As Arthur struggles, Manta reveals he tracked them using Mera's bracelet. While Manta has Arthur on the ropes, Mera takes on Orm's soldiers. Her speed and precision are deadly, and she fights with a kind of fury that makes even trained warriors hesitate. Arthur, battered and bleeding, refuses to give up. He counters Manta's aggression with raw determination, finally landing a crushing blow that sends Manta hurtling into the rocks before crashing into the sea. Mera rushes to Arthur's side, finding him badly wounded. Realizing Manta's words about the tracker, she destroys the bracelet, cutting Orm's lifeline to their location. Arthur, now barely conscious, collapses from his injuries. Meanwhile, back in Atlantis, Orm's reign of terror continues. He storms the kingdom of the fishermen, demanding their allegiance. King Riku resists, pleading for peace, but Orm has no patience for dissent. He kills Riku without hesitation, forcing Riku's heir to bow and rally the fisherman's army. With one kingdom left to conquer, Orm moves ever closer to becoming ocean master and waging war on the surface. Arthur wakes up aboard a boat, groggy but alive. Mera sits nearby, calmly playing a flute, having stolen the boat from a nearby dock. She tells him their map now leads to the dreaded Kingdom of the Trench, a dark, deadly place where Atlanta was once sent to die. Arthur hesitates, the weight of the journey finally hitting him. Doubt creeps in as he admits he's no king and doesn't think he's the right one to stop Orm's war. Mera shuts him down, insisting that he's the only one who can unite their worlds. She believes in him, he just needs to believe in himself. Their conversation is cut short as the boat enters the trench and all hell breaks loose. Out of the darkness, swarms of monstrous creatures attack, clawing their way onto the boat. Arthur and Mera fight back, wielding flares to keep the creatures at bay. With no other choice, they dive into the water. The fiery glow of their flares, the only light as they descend deeper, searching for the portal to the Hidden Sea. Arthur and Mera find the portal to the hidden sea, but as they force their way through, the energy surges and violently separates them. Mera blacks out, her body drifting among the dark waters. Just when it seems the creatures of the trench will close in on her, someone appears and pulls her to safety. Mera wakes up on the shores of a mysterious place and sees her rescuer remove their helmet. Her breath catches. It's Atlanta, alive after all these years. Moments later, Arthur arrives on the shore, his shock turning into raw emotion as he embraces his mother. Overwhelmed, he demands to know how she survived. Atlanta explains that King Orm sentenced her to die in the trench, but she fought to survive. She endured everything the creatures threw at her, refusing to give up. Arthur, still guilt-ridden, apologizes for what she went through, but Atlanta reassures him it wasn't his fault. Protecting him and Tom was worth any sacrifice. When Arthur asks why she never returned, Atlanta reveals the harsh truth. The portal is one way, and there's no escaping the hidden sea without Atlan's trident. She's tried to retrieve it herself, but the trident is guarded by a monstrous force, the Carathan. It allows no one to pass unless they are the true heir. Mera insists they'll fight the creature together, but Atlanta says the trident can only be claimed by the one worthy to wield it. She looks at Arthur, telling him this is his destiny, to rise as the king who unites both worlds. Arthur pushes through a waterfall to find the trident, held tightly by King Atlan's colossal statue. As he approaches, the Carathan rises, its massive form filling the cavern. It glares at Arthur, mocking him as a half-breed and proclaiming him unworthy. The creature hurls him to the ground, its voice booming with disdain. But Arthur doesn't back down. He stands up, bloodied and bruised, and admits that maybe he isn't worthy, but he has to try. People are counting on him, and he can't turn away. The Carathan pauses, taken aback by Arthur's honesty and resolve. For the first time in centuries, it sees a glimmer of Atlan's strength in someone. The Carathan challenges Arthur to take the trident, watching as he grabs it with both hands. Tension fills the air, but Arthur pulls it free, unleashing a surge of energy that marks him as the true king. With the power of the trident flowing through him, Arthur returns to Mera and Atlanta, who look at him with pride. He has become what he was always meant to be. Meanwhile, Orm discovers Vulko's betrayal and has him arrested. Furious, Orm spares Vulko's life but promises he'll live to see the surface world burn. With Nereus and the Fisherman's army at his side, Orm turns his attention to the Brine Kingdom, the last realm standing in his way. The Brine King refuses to surrender, defiant in the face of Orm's threats. Orm, seething, prepares to kill him, ready to claim victory. But before he can strike, the ocean begins to rumble. Massive shadows loom over the battlefield as the Carathan emerges, its thunderous roar shaking the seas. Everyone, including Orm, freezes in disbelief. The tides of war have shifted, and the final battle is about to begin. Arthur bursts onto the battlefield, a true force of nature, riding the colossal Carathan and wielding Atlan's trident like he was born for this moment. Orm's armies freeze at the sight of him, their jaws dropping. This isn't just another challenger. This is their king. And Arthur? He doesn't hold back. With a flick of the trident, he commands an army of sea creatures. Whales smash warships, sharks shred through enemy lines, and giant crabs turn the battlefield into an underwater demolition derby. Mera rushes to Arthur, urging him to stop the chaos. She knows the carnage has to end. The real fight isn't here. It's between Arthur and Orm. Arthur hesitates, doubt flickering in his eyes. He doesn't want to fail, but Mera snaps him back to reality, reminding him what's at stake. With that, Arthur draws Orm away, rising to the surface for the showdown of a lifetime. Meanwhile, Mera convinces King Nereus to stand down. She points to Arthur, trident in hand, as living proof that he's the rightful king. Nereus, seeing the truth, calls back his army, leaving the final battle where it belongs, between brothers. On the surface, waves crash and thunder rolls as Arthur and Orm face off. Orm snarls that he'll never let Arthur take the throne. Arthur, calm but resolute, knows this isn't about pride. It's about saving everyone. The fight begins, and it's brutal. Orm's skills are sharp, his rage driving every strike, but Arthur has something his brother doesn't: the power of the trident and a cause worth fighting for. Blow after blow, Arthur pushes back, finally overpowering Orm. With Orm on the ground, Arthur stands tall. He demands Orm yield the throne, but Orm, still stubborn, insists Arthur finish him. Arthur shakes his head. He won't kill his own brother. Before the tension explodes again, Atlanta steps forward. Alive and radiant, she stuns Orm into silence. He stares in disbelief as his mother embraces him, her words cutting through years of bitterness. She tells him that everything Orvax taught him was a lie, that the land and sea were never meant to be enemies. Orm, for the first time, looks conflicted as her message sinks in. Volko arrives with soldiers to arrest Orm, but there's no more fight left in him. Mara steps forward, proclaiming Arthur as the new king of Atlantis. Holding the golden trident high, Arthur stands before his people, no longer an outsider, no longer just a half-breed. The Atlanteans cheer, their voices echoing through the ocean, chanting his name. Arthur Curry has become Aquaman. The next morning, the sun rises over the calm sea as Tom walks to the docks, just like he has every day. But today, he stops in his tracks. Waiting for him, at long last, is Atlanta. Overcome with emotion, Tom pulls her into an embrace, his voice breaking as he tells her how long he's waited. Atlanta smiles through tears, their family finally reunited after all these years. Arthur's journey isn't over, but one thing is clear: the ocean and the world have found their true king.